So here's the first question, and Holly, you get the answer first. Please share with our audience this evening what qualifies you to be a candidate for the office which you are running for. Share with us any details regarding your background, education, employment, or world experiences which have prepared you for this quest. Oh, before Holly goes, we have a sign here. Holly, that he will point out the slow when they've got 30 seconds to go, and stop when they've got to stop and sit down. And I will enforce that. And I want you to know that, well, they say that with age comes wisdom, but I've also learned with age comes sore knees. And so I am going to sit down while the people talk because my knees hurt. So, Holly, please share your audience, etc.
Well, thank you very much for having us and putting this forum together, and thank you everybody for coming. I'm Holly Hughes, State Representative. I'm in my third term, former school board member, township trustee for 12 years, small business owner. Master Tag is our company. Have a husband, Rick, our two beautiful daughters, Morgan and Taylor, and our dog, Jack. Been working very hard as state representative, done a number of things, working on jobs in the economy, done the Veterans Job Fair, that we did our 7th one this year at the Walker Arena. Actually, we had 10 veterans identify as a possibility of losing their home or becoming homeless, so we're working on that with Volunteers of America and the director down at the center, the Veterans Center, that we started that together, Dave Ealing and I. So jobs in the economy is what we're working on the hardest. When we first started, people were lined up to get jobs, and people looking for work. Now work's looking for people. And so we have to work on training for that. We just signed the governor just signed the Marshall Plan for Talent last week. We need to concentrate on talent for our kids and others, to make sure we can fill the 100 or 120,000 jobs that are currently open in the state of Michigan and get more people to move back. So that's the good news. We're doing a whole lot better than we used to. Some of the other things that I've worked on, probably my fastest bill was the Bletch bill. Introduced that in January, was passed and signed into law just a month ago or so by the governor during that Willis murder. And of course, I see the Pravakis are here. The Pravaki bus law was my longest bill, and it took 3 terms to get it done, but we did get that bus safety light done. They lost their only grandchildren and children. Very personal experience for me. Worked on the Promise as well. College scholarships for MCC and Baker College for Muskegon and Newaygo County students. Whatever we can do to prepare them to enter college and get a job faster. We've done the same for the vets. I've got veterans bills that make sure they get college credit for their JST, etc. Working on fixing the roads. We added another $475 million this year without raising taxes. I voted to reduce auto insurance costs. We still have to do work on that, and working on transparency. I'm here to ask for your vote August 7th. My name is State Representative Holly Hughes, and I'm glad that you're here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Representative Hughes, is that how you'd like to be addressed?
Holly's good.
Holly's good. John is good?
John works fine.
Okay, John, you're up.
Thank you. For those of you that don't know me, my name is John Bumstead from the Newaygo area. I was a state rep. I ran in 2010. I was state rep out of Newaygo, Oceana, and Lake County from 2010. I did 3 terms, termed out last year, and it was an honor serving the residents of Newaygo and Oceana and Lake County. It's a huge area. It's a lot larger than one county, but you go from kind of Newaygo area all the way up to Lake Luther, Irons to Pentwater. It's a huge area. You're on the road a lot, and it was truly an honor for me to do that. I was married. I have 2 step-kids and a daughter, and my girlfriend Cindy's here with me tonight. And we've been going together about 2 years, and she's understanding what it's like, this whole political thing. I think it wears on her harder than it does me, and it's doing these jobs it does take a lot of work. no matter if you're Republican, Democrat, it takes a lot of effort running for these offices. And I commend anybody that takes the challenge, because it's not very easy. And when I was in the House, I sat on appropriations for 6 years. I was House Approps Vice Chair my last term. And to me, when I originally ran, this state was in a horrible financial situations. It was nothing but red taillights leaving the state, and we needed to fix that. So when a lot of business owners were elected in 2010, we had to put our heads together and figure a way to stop that stream of people leaving the state. And a lot of that work got done on appropriations. I chaired the DNR budget, vice chaired the DEQ budget. My last couple of years, I was on capital outlay, and to me, I'd like to get back into the prop side of things, because to me, that's how it makes this state run, is balancing the budgets, living within our means. And we went in, I'll never forget our first appropriations meeting, found out the state was $75+ billion in debt, because we have a balanced budget amendment in this state, and they were borrowing money for the previous administration to balance the budget. And that's a business we had to get out of. And during the Snyder administration all these years, we've been living within our means and paying down that debt. And we're on the way to be basically out of debt in a few more years, like 15 more years, if we can keep getting Republicans elected to the offices that want to put their minds and collective minds together. You have to work together in Lansing to do that. And if we get it paid off, it benefits everybody. It helps our credit rating, paying down the debt. And let's make it fair for everyone. Let's not pick winners and losers. And for me, being self-employed, being a building contractor for all those years, I like things being fair right across the board. If it's a tax limit, let's make that limit upper or lower the same for everyone. And that's why I ran for office originally, is to get this state moving in the right direction, get on appropriations, and that's really where the meat to the budgeting is on appropriations. And we've done a very good job of that, and so I want to represent all of you, get back to Lansing, and keep that momentum going. So thank you. Looking for your support in August.
Thank you. John, you get to answer the first question. Incidentally, these questions were prepared by the college, and the candidates have them in front of them, I believe, but I will read it for you.
The font's a little small for me.
Government pension reforms have been a topic for legislative action in Lansing for the past 8 years. It appears that some groups have been targeted quite heavily with the diminution of their pension programs, teachers, for example, while others have gone relatively unscathed, judges, district attorneys, state police. Please discuss how you will address the issue of pension shortfalls and how you will make these changes equitably. You go first, John.
How you address all the pensions equitably?
How will you address the issue of pension shortfalls and how you will make the changes equitably?
Okay.
The premise of the question is that the changes being proposed so far have not been spread out evenly amongst the government employees.
Well, you're absolutely right, because I remember when we went in, there were still we're still unfunded a lot of these pensions, and that's the advantage of paying down the debt, so that is part of our large debt, is the unfunded pensions. And that is what we have to address. And if we do that and keep the pace going that we're at, we can have these paid off in the near future. But it's going to take a lot of effort on all of us to do that. It doesn't make everybody happy that you have to mess around with their pensions, or, I remember we had to address that my first term. We had protesters out in the hallways. We had protesters out in the parking lot. But it is something we had to do. Otherwise, the system was headed for bankruptcy. And that does not benefit anybody in this room. It does not benefit our children or our grandchildren. We have to address the pensions, paying them down as we go, and can afford to. With this good economy, we can do that, but it's just going to take time. It can't be done overnight. And when we do that, everybody's going to be a lot happier. There's going to be more money in the pension funds, and to be fully funded would be wonderful, but it's just going to take us time to do that, and it's not an easy task. But if the economy stays strong, the projection is we can do that in the near future.
Thank you, John. Holly?
Yes. Well, John and I were in the same caucus room when, right after we got finish cutting $1.8 billion because we were in bad economic times, and I'm happy to say we're in great economic times now with all the things that we implemented. But after we just finished the budget, and they walked into the caucus room and said, we have $45 billion in unfunded teacher retirement. They've kicked the can down the road. And correct me if I'm wrong, John, but you could have heard a pin drop, right? So for about 2 minutes, the whole room was quiet. And finally I said, did you just say 45 billion? And how are we going to do that? Because if you think about it, back then our budget was 52 billion, and all but 10 of that billion, which has been the same since 2007, were federal dollars. And you cannot divert federal dollars or they'll cut you off, and some of the 10 billion that's for the state money has to be used to leverage to get those federal dollars. So we had to do some reform. We had to do some funding because we felt we had to keep the promise that we made, or somebody made, so the teachers, when they retired, they had something in their retirement. And so we did have to do reforms in that. We did have to try to start funding it. I think we've brought it down to almost 30 billion, so we've made progress. Plus we've made progress on the 80 billion it was 79 billion if I remember right. We walked into, when we had to do the budget cuts, in deficit spending. So you had that plus the 45 billion, so we had a lot of work to do. So we did reduce a lot of that, and if we stay on course, what the Republican governor has set forth right now, 2038 is when we'll be paid for. But if you divert from that, you're going to run into a problem again. So I'm really proud of us taking money, paying our bills, and making a difference in the state of Michigan. If we didn't do that, what was happening, 27.9%, 27.9, I think, somewhere in there, 24.7, sorry, of each school budget from each school district was going to teacher funds, and then the interest on top of that, it would have shot up to 34%. So we had to act. We acted responsibly to make a difference. We took a cut, our own pay cut. We cut our office budget twice, and our legislative staff, it gets the same kind of pensions. We reduced our health care for our legislators by 20% as well.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you.
You get the next question, which is, one of the most significant expenses which state government grapples with is the cost of essential support programs for our most indigent population. What are your thoughts on assisting those who fall into the subsistence level programs? What should the state government's role be in helping the poor and elderly?
Well, there's a number of things going on. We just worked on the Indigent Defense Fund, which some of the counties are worried about getting funding for. But I'm also on Senior Resources Board at Tanglewood Park, where there's 4 resources under one roof. And that includes Age Well, or Meals on Wheels, as some people know that, and 211, it was 211, they just moved that out, PACE program, and Senior Resources, all under one roof at Tanglewood Park. We raised a lot of private money with the help of Larry Hines and many donors that I see out in the audience as well, to make sure that our seniors are taken care of. And in Muskegon County anyway, we passed a millage so that people are helping that, because we had a long waiting list for Meals on Wheels. I even helped at different times go with them to deliver meals in different neighborhoods. It's really interesting to see how that works. And my argument to the appropriations chair when they wanted to cut Meals on Wheels, I said, then that'll make our nursing home costs go up. And if we can keep our seniors in their homes that's where they want to be, and it's a whole lot cheaper as well. Our first budget, they were talking about cutting it. I went to the approach chair. At that time, it was Representative Chuck Moss, and I said, you know, we could really save money if we channeled this so that seniors could stay in their homes a whole lot longer. And so it was cut one day and put back in the next day to make sure that our seniors are taken care of. So there's a lot of different things going on that we need to protect our seniors from elder abuse. I had a law on that as well passed. They're really important to me. I was the caregiver for my grandmother. Her drug bills were $1,600 a month. If you don't have an advocate or somebody to look out for or a service to go find, sometimes it's hard to figure out how you keep your loved one in their home and be an advocate. You actually have to work hard to make sure that they're taking the right drugs. We got her, I went and talked to her doctors. We found out she was on a medication, for example, for 2 years when it should have only been 2 weeks. So we got our medications down to 1,100 and less medications, which is really important with those drug interactions. You really need an advocate for your seniors. But we've worked hard on that issue. It's important to me, and I continue to work with Tanglewood Park in Muskegon County. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. John?
Thank you. A lot of the issues we have, both my parents are still alive, and my mom's not in very good health. I've been dealing with that, plus campaigning. You know, they're on a fixed income. And, you know, as state legislators, what really helps our seniors, if they're on a Social Security only income, you know, that's finding a way to balance the budget, living within their means, paying down the debt. It helps all of us. It really helps the senior. When you hear, you know, I hear different groups, well, we need a $500,000 here, $250,000 there. You know, that's okay if you're a working couple and you can afford that. But we really have to look at how government spends its money, your money, when it comes to helping the seniors. Because when I'm done paying my parents' bills at the end of the month with their fixed incomes, there's nothing left. Nothing left. And a lot of months, the kids, we have to chip in a little bit. Not that that hurts us. Luckily, we can afford to do that. But we really have to look after our parents and grandparents and how we spend our money in this state. Because the more we spend it, it affects them down the line. And we have to live within our means at the state level. It benefits our parents on a fixed income. And when it comes to the poor, I think our biggest issue is find out why they're poor, why aren't they working, and why aren't they contributing to our economy. That might be some education issues, it might be some training issues, and if they're perfectly healthy and capable of at least obtaining and keeping a job, we've got to make sure they have that ability. That might mean coming here, it might mean going to the Career Tech Center and getting the skills that they need to hold a job. But just, you know, if they're capable of working today and they're not working, I want to find out why they're not working. They need to be out there at least trying to give that. I don't mind, you're probably like me, I don't mind a hand up. The handouts get old after a while. And we got to find a way, if they're not working, to get them employed and make sure they can stay in the job market. Because like I say, if you drive down this road for 3 miles, there's 10 help wanted signs out there. And why those jobs aren't filled is just beyond me. If they're perfectly healthy, perfectly capable, we need to find out why, and maybe we need to pull back some of the freebies out there. Because right now, between the state and federal government, a lot of the nonprofits do a lot of good work, but people figure out how to manipulate that system. They'll never get off that system. So I believe that's what we need to look at. Why are they poor? That's what we need to fix. And maybe if there's a way to get them educated through our tech centers, like I said, we have world-class tech centers here in Muskegon and Newaygo and Oceana counties. Let's get them there, because there's no excuse today, if you're perfectly healthy, not to be out there working. And let's fix that problem.
Thank you, John. And you are the first responder to the following question. The state of Michigan recently implemented a new law which requires all third graders to read at grade level or suffer being retained. What is your position on this issue? How would you assure parents and the public that this is not another initiative which is merely designed to meddle with the education system and to assist the large testing corporations like ACT or SAT?
That's a great question, because I was one of the few legislators that voted no on the third grade reading. To me, I'm a good example of, I didn't learn to read until I was 10 years old. I've come to find out my vision was so poor, I just was able to fool the eye tests all those years. To me, it should be up to the parent, the school board, and the superintendent and the teacher if should be able to be passed or kept back a year. It shouldn't be up to a test that's mandated by the state of Michigan. I've always opposed that. I like local control, leave it up to the parents and the school. Because not everybody learns at the same reading level. Not everybody is going to be a scientist or whatever, go to college. Not everybody needs a four-year degree. But I think all kids need to be treated separately and leave that up to the parents and the local school boards. We want local control. That's where it's important to elect people to these school boards that know what's going on and can help our students. But they're the ones that hire the superintendents who hire the principals. I think it's a local control issue. It shouldn't be mandated by the state of Michigan. And what you have in Lansing with term limits anymore, every 2 years you get 30 and 40 new members, and they implement all these bills, all these rules. Nothing gets implemented very long. They never get fully implemented. You don't know if they work or not because they're not there 2 years. Well, let's change it. Let's change it. So the local control gets tossed out the window anytime Lansing gets involved in your education.
Thank you. Holly?
Well, I voted for the bill. If you're not reading by third grade and they just keep passing you along, if you can't read, you can't learn other subjects. And so we have a few school districts around here that 5% graduation would be high. And so what is the problem? Well, third grade reading, if you're not reading, that's a problem. As John Kennedy would say, from Grand Rapids, not the president, he invested $250,000 of his own to try to help with reading, to get kids ready for third grade reading, to see, how can we teach kids better, what's the best that we can do to make sure that we're not losing these folks and that they go into the welfare system repeatedly for four generations. We need to make sure that our kids can read by third grade to the best of our ability. I think local control, I believe in local control. I was a school board member myself and a parent. But not all these kids have parents, and that's part of the problem, that they can go home to. They may be on drugs or something else. And so the school systems essentially have to pick up that education load. And right now we can't fill the jobs that we have right now. We need better educated kids. We need to break that system of going on welfare for four generations. The kids need to be educated so they can bridge that gap. We're helping with the Promise legislation that we worked on. I'm on the Promise board. We raised private money. There's people in this room who contributed to that, including our company and a lot of private citizens, so that kids can break that cycle. We need our kids to help us with the jobs that we can't fill right now, to help our hometowns and work hard. They need to read. So that's why I voted for the third grade reading bill. I don't want to kick the can down the road. So the kid can't read at third grade and you're going to graduate him at 12th grade and they can't even read the job application? That's a problem. So we need to focus in on the young ones, try to break the cycle, and we've got a bill up right now for welfare to work. I plan to vote for that bill. because if you're able-bodied, we want to work you into working. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. John has asked for rebuttal.
Yep. A good case in point on local control is, I had Lake County in my House seat, and Baldwin was in that, and they had a huge percentage of their students didn't graduate. So we worked with Baldwin schools. The governor came up and met with them, and of course they don't have a lot of money there in Baldwin. It's the poorest county per capita in the state of Michigan. And we found some funding out there that they were able to put in some air conditioning, but we left it up to the local school board, and what they did, the balanced calendar, instead of the months after Labor Day up until Memorial Day, they go 45 on, 15 off. It's the same amount of days, but it's kind of full-time school. The kids don't have their dropout rate almost went away. But it went like that because it was left up to the locals. It was local control from the school board, from the superintendent down, and it's working up there. And that's why I really like the local control aspect. It gives them an option. This is an option for them to try. It won't work everywhere.
Thank you, John.
It's working Baldwin. So, thank you.
The next question starts with Holly, and it just runs along the same lines. Education continues to be a top concern among many voters in your respective districts. Discuss how you hope to address the issues of funding for K through 12 and community colleges, which see higher levels of support going to wealthier districts and fewer resources going to the more impoverished or rural districts.
Actually, we just passed the budget for $240 more per student on our side of the state. $120 increase on the east side of the state. And we've been doing that all along with our budgets to try to increase the parity. Because on the east side of the state, they get about double of what we get on the west side. So we want to make sure that that slowly comes up. We actually spent the education budget at $14.9 billion this year out of a $56 billion budget. More than we've ever spent on education before. And paying down the debt for the teacher retirement. I think we've been responsible in trying to make a difference with education. I think we have the funding there. We just need help with certain districts. And when you don't have your parents, that's a problem. And so it's not always an easy, just throw the money at the issue. But the funding is there. We've worked hard to make sure it's in place. We had to do cuts our first year, but every year after that, we've made sure that the west side gets double the amount of what the east side does when it comes to parity. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, that was, I'll never forget our first year in office. It was rather tense, especially if you sat on appropriations. Every appropriations meeting, the place was packed. It was a room bigger than this, and there would be 200 people in there, and not many of them ever left with a smile because we wanted to make sure that the state, we lived within our means, and to do that first year or two, to get that first budget balanced, it was tough. And everybody in the state of Michigan, if you were a state employee, no matter what department you were in, you were going to get a little pinch. And education took a pinch because we had to address the spending. We do need to spend money on schools, but if you look at when we went in 2010, where we're at today, it's a 180-degree turn. Is it ever enough money? Probably, but probably not. It just depends on what part of the state. And, from Detroit to Marquette to Michigan or Muskegon to Newaygo is a huge area, and each district is different. Some districts can do very well and educate their kids very well on the amount of money they're getting. Others have a harder time. That's why I go back to the local control. You need to really pay attention on who we elect at the school board level. They need to be connected with the state. They need to know the budgeting of the state, how that works, and at the local level. Because if you don't, you're back in, money can save a bad, poorly run business. You can throw money at a poorly run business all day long. It will not balance the budget and it will fail. It's not all about money sometimes, it's about money management. And we just have to really be careful on who we put into these schools. I think the most important job in the state is a school board member. And if they don't hire a proper superintendent to help them balance the budgets, live within the means, it's going to be tough. And like I say, each district is different. 80% of the districts in this state are doing a fine job. It's just you can go to certain areas where they just have not done a good job. They're so far behind. I don't know that they can ever catch up. So maybe, you give them other options to go other places. And that's usually, if they have to go a long way from home, that's not a good answer either. But it's just, most of the state does a very good job with the money they receive. And it's all economy driven. But we do have to educate the kids and get them started off on the right foot. It is important.
Thank you, John. And you get to go first. And this is our last question. And I think that we're going to get out of here in 45 minutes.
Quick.
Despite increases in the gasoline tax and the vehicle registration fees, Michigan's infrastructure continues to deteriorate at an alarming rate. What ideas or initiatives would you propose to help address this concern in a feasible manner? Make sure you explain how you would fund these things.
Well, right now, there's a lot. This is the first year where this full funding is coming into effect. We're so far behind with infrastructure in the state. We're 20 years behind, and it's going to take us a while to catch up. And you live in a state that gets snow, rain, freezing weather conditions. You've got 5, maybe in a good year, 6 months to work on the roads. We only have X amount of contractors to do that work. So it's going to take us a lot. The money's there. And there's more money to the locals, to the counties. Muskegon County's received more this year, and all the surrounding counties have. But it's going to take us a lot of time to dig ourselves out of that hole. Just to throw more money at it, I'm always a little concerned you can just throw money at a bad thing and spend too much too fast, and I think that's what you'll be wasting it. But we're going to be a while catching up. Now, if we need additional funds, over the years the state's thrown a lot of money out there at economic development projects that haven't panned out very well. Billions of dollars. If we would have taken some of that money over the years, we wouldn't have had to raise road taxes at all. There'd have been enough. There's literally billions and billions of dollars have gone to those, and 30% of them within 2 or 3 years fail anyway. If we'd actually look at the bigger picture, if good infrastructure, good roads, good bridges affects all businesses, affects everybody in this room, it wouldn't have cost us nearly as much this last gas tax and registration fee hike. And I think that's how we need to look at government within. There's money there, it just has to be spent more wisely. You have to pick your priorities. And I think for several years, and if there's extra money coming in from these budgets, well, let's start this program, that program. I think government needs to look at living within our means and finding what we do need to fund. Infrastructure is one of those. And there's money there, it's just going to take time to catch up. And right now, if I can go to Kalkaska and back, all the roads are brand new. The east side of the state is typically better than the southeast Michigan. They got a lot of catch up there. And the roads there are a lot more expensive to fix because they get a lot more traffic. It's just, like I said, it's going to take us a long time to catch up, but it's going to be patient. The money is there. There's plenty of money there's going to be in the budgets. But let's look within, not expand that. I think there's going to be a lot of money there. So it just takes time.
Thank you, John. Holly?
I had one of the bills in the road package from last term, and that helped with my vote. $200 million in tax relief, increasing the homestead tax credit was part of that road package. We tried hard to make sure over our couple of terms that we put money into the roads without raising taxes. Now, we did have to do a little bit. Or a lot to help with that. But what we did this year, a few months ago, we put $175 million more because we had one project that didn't need the money, and we moved it over to roads. And then with the budget, we added another $300 million. So that was $475 million. After the May revenue conference, we found out the state was doing a lot better economically. So that was $475 million on top of what we've already implemented for road repair As of a couple weeks ago, we passed that in the budget without raising taxes. So, and that is our goal as we go along, is when we get this bump in revenue conference, because the state is doing so well, to move that funding into repairs like that and paying down our debts, not only for the teachers, but other things. Because we had a couple administrations who built roads by bonding, and that's not a good way to do it. Now we have to replace them. So, but we also have legislation that we put into place that there are better standards for road building, so we don't have what we had with the situation with in Holland with Highway 6. So, working hard to make sure we get it roads fixed as fast as we can. But if you dump in too much money too fast, you may get a couple more roads fixed, but at a higher cost. And to find the workers for it is quite difficult. So we are adding money. I think that $475 million on top of our full funding now at $1.2 billion. And you see a lot of orange barrels around there, but it's going to take time, unfortunately. So, but we are working hard on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Okay. Now, each candidate now has 2 minutes to summarize their position and to say why people need to vote for them, or whatever else you want to say in those 2 minutes. Holly, you get to go first again because you answered the last question.
Thank you very much. So we've done a lot for jobs in the economy, but there's a lot more to do. Along with the Marshall Talent Plan, we need to get more people back. We have 120,000 jobs to fill. So it's a whole lot better than when we first started, but it's still a problem. So we need to recruit more people back. In fact, we've had small groups to look at that. Actually, they're looking at some millennials in Pennsylvania where there's a high unemployment, and we have the same kind of temperament or temperatures around here and climate to have them move back. So we're continue to work on jobs in the economy and filling those jobs so we're competitive with other states. Fixing our roads, of course, is number one. Reducing auto insurance. We almost got there last term during lame duck. We almost got the fraud part of it. We really need to take these in pieces and get it done. We need to stop waiting around. We're the highest auto insurance in the whole nation. We found out during that process of looking at multiple different bills over the years that if we would have had a limit of $5 million since the $5 billion instead of, $5 million instead of the unlimited that we have right now, since its inception there have been 12 people not covered. So we need to look at that and try to make a difference with auto insurance and making government transparent. I co-sponsored those bills. I voted for those bills last term, and I co-sponsored them this time. It's important that you know what your government is doing. We should not be able to hide behind our jobs. You should be able to know what's going on our emails and each issue that we work on, what's happening. You have a right to know, and I commit to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you.
John, 2 minutes.
Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Appreciate that, and I appreciate your support this coming August. I went to Lansing originally. It was never to pass bills. It was never to get my name in the paper. It was never to get on TV. It was there to get the state working, headed in the right direction, and helping the private sector head in the right direction. Government doesn't need to create jobs. We just need to be efficient with our dollars, efficient with what we do, and help the private sector create jobs. In the last 7 or 8 years, I think we've done a pretty good job of that. And that's why I want to get back into Lansing. I want to get back on appropriations, because if you're on approps, that's where you can really help your district. Like when I helped Muskegon Community College last year, acquire $5.5 million for their nursing building out there. I worked with the president, and I see a couple of the members here we worked with, and it's good to see them. And that's how you can help your district. And that's why it's important to elect people that can get things done in Lansing, that know how the process works in Lansing. And it's kind of it's how it works down there is you know, you get to learn the directors, the different department heads, and that you can, once you do that and you're on appropriations, it helps your district if you get to know the MDOT director or the DEQ director. Knowing those folks and having their budgets can help your district a lot better. I never wanted to sit on policy. I always like the money side of things, and it can help your area a lot better. And as far as the transparency, Holly mentioned it, I was always opposed to those bills. In fact, the Senate never even took them up. Too many personal issues come to I'll never forget the first issue that came to my office. It was an issue regarding a young child that had molested a cousin 30 years ago. You can't get the felony off their record, and they want to get their record expunged. And I don't think those are the types of things the public needs to know about. And the other thing is, when it comes election time, you're going to have Republicans, Democrats, FOIA Republicans. It's going to be a complete mess.
2 minutes are up. Holly?
I just have one short rebuttal to the transparency. Of course, in those bills, for emails, you know, social security numbers and personal information would be redacted. I'm talking about making sure that you know what happens when the governor makes decisions and you have questions, or if we make decisions and you have questions about emails. It would never show the information about, personal information about constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's have a round of applause for our candidates.